that we add protocol.
Which one?
This
I
chairman.
thought you meant the meeting. I was like, I don't think we can do that.
It's a little late. It's a little late. You were at 6.
I hereby call this August 13th, 2012 meeting of the Frankfort City Board of Commissioners to order. Clerk, please call roll.
Commissioner Barnard.
Here.
Commissioner Hadden. Here. Commissioner Turner.
Here.
Commissioner May.
Here.
Mayor Brown.
Thank you. The first order of business are citizen comments. I think everybody here knows the drill. Anyone's welcome to speak on any topic they want. We just ask that folks limit their comments to 5 minutes or less. Charlotte? And please identify yourself for the record.
We have to.
Yeah. We ask you to come to the mic.
It looks scary.
Oh, I'm sorry. We like to do it this way so that we can record the meetings and make them available to the public.
I'm Charlotte Nelson, and I just had a couple comments. First of all, we're going to miss Mr. Goins. He has done a fine job, and I hope he goes and does a lot of fun things in his rest of his 40, 50 more years he's got. So thank you, Fred.
Thank you.
Also, the park system, I wanted to thank both of the gyms. Last year I mentioned something about it's a shame the city and the state didn't do anything about 4th of July downtown. This year we had flags downtown that look very nice on St. Clair, and it's nice to know that someone listens and acts on that. So that was appreciated. Thank you, Jim. And the recent storm, the streets department did an absolutely wonderful job with the trash removal, the trees and branches. I know they're still out there, but they're working hard, and they had them off of everybody. I live out in Indian Hills, and it was gone almost as soon as it came down, and as fast. So thanks to, I guess it's Jeff and his department there. Now to the other stuff. I was a little concerned about, and this is just a suggestion, the recent billing that for the garbage fees went out. And I don't know about anybody else here, but half the people I spoke to did not even see their voucher for their extra bags. The voucher is for trash. The notice and the vouchers clip off was on a subject of recycling. They should have been separate or different color or something, because they're going to say, well, I didn't see it. I read it twice because I was reading again how much I had to clean my cans out to recycle before I even noticed it. But maybe they can be better noted or something so that people will see and not say, well, we didn't get the notice. When the notice was there, but it's not as obvious as one would think it was there. And I'm also concerned about you all know me here about garbage cans. And since we have the new garbage cans pay as you throw ordinance, I have no complaints about that. It's working fine. I need a new garbage cans anyway, and I'm tight, and it saved me a lot of money. But if you look downtown especially, garbage cans are not being put away at all. People who have access to the sides of their homes or offices are leaving them in front. I don't know if it's a protest about the garbage cans because they didn't have them before, or absolutely laziness, because it's a matter of pulling them another 30 or 40 feet to the side of their house out of the view. And I think that we need to ask Mr. Moore to check the ordinance. The previous ordinance said that you had to remove your garbage cans from the street right away, sidewalk, in front of building within a reasonable time after a garbage pickup. There's a new ordinance there that in front of the building has been taken out. And I don't know if that was intentional, so to give a leeway for people to leave the garbage cans where they are in front, or it's considered violation of somebody's First Amendment rights, but it would be hard to enforce if there's not an ordinance to say put your garbage cans to the side of the building, at least building level. There's so many around downtown that are just simply on the front yard in front of the building, and we need to encourage people to take more pride in downtown Frankfort, especially, it's all over, but to put the garbage cans out of sight. They may not see them once they go inside their homes, but the public does, and as our visitors do. And nicely, quickly. I mentioned a couple of the commissioners a while back about the budget, and we do have a trolley that cost us $400,000, I believe, and it was stimulus money. Is there any way to sell it? We don't, it's utilized some for special events, but I think most of the people of Frankfort have seen it and said, well, does anyone ever ride it? Even though it may sort of seem free to the Frankfort, I know that it's a cost to the city of Frankfort. And it's a nice, pretty little thing, but it's not efficient or effective. And there are other cities that maybe could use this more. If we can sell it, now that we've had it for a couple of years, I would hope that maybe somebody would look into that possibility. And 5 or 6 minutes has passed, and I thank you.
Thanks, Charlotte.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Any other citizen comments?
My name is Connie May, and I'm here also to express gratitude first to you guys. I hope you remember that I came here a couple months ago asking for your help to get a grant to establish a small park, Fantasy Forest, down by the community gardens, along with the help of lots of volunteers and the Commonwealth Gardens folks. And you gave me that support, and it just came up time to do the interim report for the grant that we got. And I thought you might like to know a little bit of what we've accomplished so far, so that's why I decided to come. Well, first off, as well as thanking you guys, I also want to thank the 2 gyms. They have been really, really helpful, both in helping me decide where to put the beds most efficiently and the planting beds. And when we had our work parties, they did a great job of helping provide tools that the Commonwealth Gardens didn't have. And their staff have done really fantastically well in keeping the place watered. And they twice when we really the weeds got out of control and we needed to do some things, they sent guys down to help work for a few hours each time. So it was really, really helpful, and I really can't praise them enough. I've been very, very pleased at how much the city's helped, and also very pleased with how the volunteers have helped. We've had 70 different people log in to work, and we spent 400 plus hours down there planting and weeding and mulching. We've got 60 different species of native trees planted, about 125 trees, and I don't know how many flowers. The grant didn't include flowers, but we wanted to put some in, so we raised money for flowers, and so far we raised $300 and put in lots of different flowers for the butterflies and pollinators for the gardens. Also, the Go Frankfort people came and worked, and they also brought us 3 picnic tables. So now there are picnic tables down there. What used to be just kind of a grassy area is rapidly becoming a really nice place for people to stop and bring their kids and play. And this Thursday, we have a nature program there. We've also starting this week a nature club for the King Center kids, and we'll be meeting down at the Fantasy Forest and looking at the trees and shrubs and learning about nature. And what else? Oh, we also have a cat castle. I hope if you guys haven't been down there, you stop by there. The folks from the Capital Area Master Gardeners built and donated what I call a cat castle. I love caterpillars, and it's a great way to educate kids. And so it's just a little enclosure, and we've raised 3 different species of caterpillars in there, and raised them all the way from a caterpillar to a chrysalis to an adult butterfly that then got to be released. And people walking their dogs by there and people visiting the park got to be able to watch that whole process. So it's very, very fun. And I guess the last thing, I could tell you a million other things. The last thing is that we've had a person volunteer to work on the signage there, making some nice signs. We've got a couple of temporary things up, and So we're working on that, and hopefully we'll have it done by mid-September. And somebody volunteered to do a Facebook page. So if you're on Facebook, you can find us however you find things on Facebook. So, anyway, so thank you again. I really appreciate your support.
Well, thank you for all your hard work, Connie.
Thank you.
It's been fun.
Anyone else? Okay. We'll move on to discussion of tentative agenda. If anyone has any comments or questions.
I have one thing. In 7.2, it's regarding the contract to get a vehicle. I didn't know if there was, and I asked this before when the police had got some vehicles, but is there not a contract to be used with a local dealer versus one in Lexington?
Just for the fire chiefs.
It's fire chief.
There are several dealers across the state that have been awarded the state contract. Crossroads Ford is one of them, but in my comparison between the three makes of vehicles that are this type of vehicle, these pursuit type sedan, the Dodge Charger is the cheaper of the three between the Ford, the Chevy, and the Dodge. And the closest dealer is Freedom in Lexington, so that's
Okay.
why I chose them.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Any other questions about the tentative agenda? Turn it over to the city manager for staff reports.
Thank you very much. We have staff reports, and so I'll call on department heads if you have those. Mr. Dawson, have anything? Chief Wilhoit? Chief Postage? Please come forward.
I forgot to mention on the vehicle, by the way, since I put that abstract together, the price has actually dropped $450, so I'll be amending that abstract. It's a little cheaper than what you see.
Everyday low prices.
Yeah. Last month, the commission authorized us making 8 conditional offers for firefighter recruits, and we've begun that process. Since then, though, I've been notified that I have another forthcoming retirement sometime this fall or at the very latest, the end of December. So I would like to have permission to add to the agenda, adding one more conditional offer so that we can process all recruits in at one time and put them all through the recruit training at one time, because it doesn't make a lot of sense to hire 8 now and then try to fill a separate vacancy 2 or 3 months down the road and start him in recruit training all by himself. In the long run, with the overtime required for instructors and that sort of thing, it's going to be cheaper in the long run to do it that way.
I support it.
Yeah. Sounds
Okay,
good.
thank you.
Okay. So we have consensus to add one firefighter recruit. Mr. Donahue? Mr. Hackbart?
Just a quick update, our Shinkle Lane sidewalk project, our engineer's got the surveying portion done, and he's about a week or 2 away from getting final plans together. So after we get final plans, we'll be bidding that project out. So just we're working on it, we're getting together, so hopefully this fall we'll get it under construction. And another item, we talked about the East Frankfort pool. We met with a contractor, and it looks like it's going to be over $20,000, so it'd be an agenda item. But one thing, it's not a budgeted item, so if we want to proceed on that, we'll have to discuss how we're going to pay for it, because it's not in our budget to do that specific project, since it looks like it's going to be over $20,000.
Okay.
So.
Is that something you want us to discuss today? I think we can.
Well, I guess we just need to get some direction if we want to proceed on that project. Get some direction from you all to proceed, because we can proceed and put a agenda item together to do a bid award, but just some discussion of how we're going to pay for it, I guess. We need to
Do you have any
that discussion
recommendations?
as well.
Okay, well, without objection, we can discuss that under old business today.
It's great. I had it there anyway.
Okay, great.
Not for that purpose, but
Okay?
see you shortly.
Thank you. Mr. Mueller, Planning and Codes.
Hello, we have a item we'd like to add to the agenda, the demolition of a residence or a building at 761 Home Street. They've had 2 citations issued by the Code Enforcement Board and a separate notice to raise it, and they haven't responded. $700 in liens have been filed, and so we're seeking to add that to the agenda.
Okay.
I'll support it.
And on 7.1 was a item under consent for us. The dollar amount's going to be under $4,000, so that was good news for us.
Oh, okay, I see.
We're just waiting to get our final bid, which will be higher than that. So, thank you all.
Thank you. Mr. Parrish, Parks.
Thank you. I do have a few things today. Just some notifications. The Blues Festival is Saturday at Ward Oaks Amphitheater at the River Park. And Renee True was head of the committee, and I have not talked to him, but somebody did today, and I believe they raised approximately $11,000 for family abuse Saturday and had a really good turnout. This Wednesday, the ladies of Juniper Hill Golf Course will be holding a regional Central Kentucky tournament called the Juniper. So it will be at the golf course all day, and I believe Charlotte's involved in that, and so that's a big regional event. The stream restoration project is beginning at Cove Spring. They are mobilizing now, and that will begin over in the wetland area in approximately 1 week. They've started some other stuff and mobilizing, so they are here. And Rebecca's got a little something to tell you. They upped the grant, which is a good thing. One last thing, we have made contact with CSX Railroad, with Elizabeth Steele, who is their Rails to Trails manager. And we're asking Mr. Moore, Brent Swigert, Jim Call of Walk Bike Frankfort, and myself and Mr. Moore met to draft an offer letter of $2,500 for the CSX property.
Great.
That's a start, and they are interested, and so we're asking permission for that. Monies will be taken out of account 520, which will not affect general fund. It's a Fort Hill Construction / grant revolving account, which we're getting ready to deposit $24,000 back into there from the Sky Trail at Cove Spring.
That's great news. Thank you, Jim.
Great.
So it's just another, it's a really big piece of connecting 500 acres of green space in the city by a complete loop trail of all the trail system, which we hope to have completed within 3 years. So, and it will also have a spur up to Kentucky State and connect East Main to downtown.
Great.
So we're asking Mr. Moore to do that.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Mr. Pacheco, IT.
No, sir.
No report. Mr. Scow, Sewer Department. Rebecca, you have anything today? Ms. Hall.
Just a little update on what Jim had said on the stream mitigation project. Once they got into the project, there were some things that had not been formally addressed. So Fish and Wildlife upped the grant about $300,000 to take care of, I believe it's a bridge that needs to be put in and some vegetation maintenance and that kind of thing. So that's nothing we really asked for. They just, once they got into it, they decided that they needed to up the grant. So you'll see a budget amendment coming through in the next month or so.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. City Solicitor, Rob Moore.
Thank you. I have several things, a couple that I'd like to add to the city, to the agenda. One is, we've been speaking with our Westlaw rep and had negotiated a lower contract, so we'd like to get that onto the consent agenda so we can have we can pay less for our Westlaw service that's provided to the city, with your all's permission. The next item is, today I was contacted by the Heritage Council, and a deed of preservation and conservation easement needs to be filed by KSU with respect to the federal building, the old Paul Sawyer Library, and that easement is required to be filed in order for KSU to be eligible for its $1 million grant. And as part of that process, the city needs to agree to enter into a subordination agreement which would give the easement precedence over our mortgage. If you'll recall, KSU is paying off the purchase price of the property, and the easement should not affect its ability to continue to pay the amount due, and I believe it's $50,000 each year. But in order to satisfy the requirements for the $1 million grant, we have to agree to subordinate our mortgage to the easement. And again, I don't think it's more of a technical requirement and will not affect their ability to pay us. But the preservation, conservation, easement grant really just means that the property is going to be used or is going to be preserved and maintained in its historical state. So, with your all's permission, I'd like to add that on to the agenda because the subordination agreement has to be filed by August 31 in order for KSU to be eligible for the grant. And again, today's the first day I heard anything about that, so I'd like to add that to the agenda.
I'm in agreement.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
Great. The city owns a couple of lots that are located down on Logan Street, and they were 3 out of the 4 lots were purchased with FEMA grant monies for flood mitigation issues, and so the city cannot sell those properties. We do have a 4th lot that the city could sell if we chose to do so. We have a landowner that would be interested in leasing that property for purposes of parking for tourism, and that's Rebecca Ruth. They did have the buses that would come down with tourists. They were using the old Frankfort lumber area for parking, and of course that's no longer available. So with the city commission's permission, I'd like to enter into negotiations and see if we can come up with a lease that's acceptable to the city.
Sounds good to me. Can you tell us exactly which parcel this is?
It's one of the pieces is surrounded on 3 sides by Rebecca Ruth, and it's right on Logan Street. I think it's 126, 128, 130, and 132. They're pretty small tracts, pretty small little lots.
Sure. Yeah, I think I know where that is.
So if
I
I
don't know about
could,
Fantasy Forest.
I think it's in across. It's on the Capitol side of Logan, I assume. As in, it's on the Capitol Avenue side.
Yes.
it's right. It's I would say it's kind of it's in the same block as Rebecca Ruth
Right.
is.
Yeah.
And it's on the east side of Capitol Avenue.
Sure. I think that's fine.
And nothing is, even if we lease the property, nothing can be built on the property. It would just be used as a parking lot. One other issue is, you all may know that the Board of Ethics met last week, and I attended. the meeting, and Ramona was there too. You all may have seen that Kathy Carter has appealed the decision of the Franklin Circuit Court. And so that case will now be heard by the Court of Appeals, and the Ethics Board requested that Bill Ayer be allowed to continue to represent them in that matter. And of course, if you'll recall, he represented them in the actual hearing, and then he successfully represented them before the circuit court. So it just makes sense that he would continue to represent them in the Court of Appeals. And I said I would make sure you all knew about that and had no objections.
Yeah.
No objection.
Okay. And now there is one more issue, and if you all wanted to talk about this in new business, that would be fine. But we've had an individual that has within the last 30 days served the city with about 28 open records requests. And of those 28, we've actually responded to 20. She has failed to pick up the records on 2 or 3 occasions that were made available, and it's imposing a significant burden on human resources, on the Human Resources Department, and also on the clerk's office. And under the statute, it specifically provides that if you have clear and convincing evidence that repeated open records requests are intended to disrupt other essential functions of the public agency, the official custodian may refuse to permit inspection of the public records or mail copies thereof. I don't know that the City Commission wants to take the step to preclude a citizen from using the open records process, but it might be helpful if we could at least have authority to send a letter to this person and ask them to be more judicious in the records that they're requesting, so we make sure that things are being done efficiently, just because of the fact that it really is bogging down the operations of human resources in the city clerk's office. And I'm willing, if y'all want to discuss it further in new business, we certainly can, but I just wanted to give you all a heads up on that.
We can discuss that in new business if folks want. I'm certainly sympathetic to staff's plight, and I understand the request, but I don't think I would be able to support setting a precedent whereby we're denying or discouraging any open records requests. And I understand that it's a pain.
It's just certainly you want to make the records available to citizens because they have a definite right to review the city's business because it's their city. There is a way, so.
Bill?
I have a question. Since the city clerk is the designated custodian of records, I believe in that statute, I think the city clerk's already has the authority to make a decision. So I would just say defer to the city clerk and if need be, can come back to us. I don't know why we would need to get involved in an open records request if it's going through the city clerk and the city clerk's consulted with the city attorney, or you said other staff.
Well, the statute does say the official custodian may refuse to permit inspection of the public records or mail copies thereof, and certainly the city clerk is the official records custodian, but we just thought we should bring it to the attention of the city commission since it's an unusual situation that the custodian's being faced with.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I I guess if I could further say, I don't have a problem if the city clerk feels like we're being, I think there's a provision that also allows for response from the custodian of records or any agency to say, we'll work on that as staff time allows. And I believe that complies with the response. And so then it doesn't have to be denied, just that we might, as an agency, might not be able to get certain records within that 3-day or 5-day
Right.
period. It's like, we'll still get it for folks, but just will take a little bit, might take a little bit longer because of that's a lot of, I've seen some of the emails back and forth, haven't seen all. That's a lot of information, and also when people request information and they change their mind and refuse to pick it up.
Right.
Well, I think what we would like to do then is we will work with the requester and maybe provide things on a little more reasonable schedule so that it doesn't bog down the Human Resources Department and the City Clerk's Department, but continue to keep the commission apprised if there is a problem.
That seems fair to me.
There is a lot of correspondence going back or coming back from the requester, and some of it has been seen as threatening, and that has been somewhat of a concern. But with that being said, if the city clerk and I can work, and we'll make sure that the documents are provided in a timely manner, and we'll respond within a 3-day statutory period and make the documents available in a timely manner while keeping the operation of the human resources and city clerk's offices working well.
I don't think that's unreasonable.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's it for me.
Excuse me. Did you mention the CSX, that was covered in the other statement? Okay, thank you. Have I missed any other department head report? Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem.
Next up is old business. First item on the discussion agenda is a report on interim city manager search.
Randy Donahue.
As the commission's aware, we ran an ad in the paper a couple of weeks ago, and the deadline for resumes was Friday afternoon at close of business, and we did get a few. And of course, we're not, I think we talked about not talking about names in open session, but at the end of the agenda tonight, there's a closed session, and I'll be presenting the names to the commission and seeking some guidance on where we go from there at that time. Is that enough on the interim, and jump to the next item, or is there any questions there?
I guess I'd be just curious to know how many submissions we did get.
11.
11.
Okay.
Great.
On the search firms, all three that were the top 3 firms from when we put the RFP out in May of 2011 have agreed to be here on September 10th. So hopefully, I've told them to try to keep their presentations to a short 20-25 minutes, tell us what their firm specializes in, how their process works, and to provide updated cost information. And so at the work session in September, they'll be here, and they should give you what you need. I do think the process there, as a professional service, we're not required to go low bid or whatever. I think the process will be that you need to select the firm that you're most comfortable working with going forward, that you feel like they've got the best pool of candidates, that you feel like they understand the kind of process you want to have, and that they can deliver what you need. Okay.
Thanks, Randy.
Great, thank you.
I'd just like to
Yeah.
say one thing on that, and because we're going to go into closed session to discuss names. It's my personal feeling that we just try to avoid finding a search firm at the time, and hopefully we can find someone within those 11 candidates to fill in a short-term period, and just, depending on how the election goes, let the next commission decide what to do with their city manager. As a newly elected commissioner a few few years ago when we came in with the idea of finding a new city manager, he, I don't know which word to describe as an adjective, but he stepped down, allowing new commissioners, Mr. Turner and myself, to come in and help bring Fred in. And I just think it would be a wise decision to hold off trying to get a firm at this time, save the city some money besides hiring out a firm.
If a majority of the commission would like me to contact the firms and tell them that they do not need to be here on September 10th, I'd be glad to do that and just tell them that there's been a decision to go forth and with our own process, I guess, for lack of better words.
And that might come after the discussion this evening in closed
Okay.
session, but I just want to let people know that that's where I stand, is hopefully we can find someone in those 11 candidates to step in and after the election, allow the city to spend the money then on finding a firm if needed. We might get lucky with another Fred, who knows? Thank you.
I'll say that I'm happy to play that by ear in terms of seeing who we've got on plate and who we can get on board as an interim. That is an awfully long time to go without solidifying a permanent city, well, no city managers are permanent without solidifying a non-interim city manager, but I'm happy to see how this process goes. Next up is discussion of outdoor use of indoor furniture. This is something that came to our attention via citizen comments a few meetings ago. We had a pretty light meeting. We only had 3 folks here, or 3 commissioners. Anyways, I believe Mr. Skip Hunt, who came to us because he had been cited because some of his tenants had a recliner that they were using as porch furniture. Before we get into discussion, I just want to say that I've talked to Mr. Hunt just to clarify what his concerns were. Initially, my sense was that he was asking us to consider allowing recliners on porches, which I frankly don't have a problem with. But he was actually, in clarification, just asking us to clarify the language of the ordinance. He felt it wasn't clear that the recliners were prohibited, and I guess that's just because that particular section of the ordinance is headed with a reference to storage of.
Placed or stored.
Right. I mean, I think it's clear enough, but well, I just wanted to go ahead and get that on the table. You'll have something to say.
I provided you all with a very brief letter with the code from the current code, which does read as, the title is storage of household appliance or non-outdoor furniture. Then it states no such appliance or non-outdoor furniture as defined in Chapter 2 shall be placed or stored in the exterior property area, excluding within enclosed structures. And then it has another sentence. That language was created in 2005. It was December is when it was adopted by the City Commission. It was debated and discussed and hashed out and worked through over a year time period in 2003, 2004 with the Code Enforcement Task Force. That was a citizen-based group. They met nearly every month for a year and a half and came up with significant new changes to our entire property maintenance code. And that was based on the International Code Council's 2003 version of the property maintenance code. So I highlighted the section that they had actually indicated, which was in the middle, and the very bottom box of that page showed what was previous. And again, the top is what it was ultimately adopted. If you want to add the word under 302.8, placed or in that sentence, leading.
So like as in storage or placement of household appliance or non-outdoor furniture.
You can do that, and I'd be happy to prepare that ordinance, but I don't believe it changes the intent, nor does it change what the actual statement says, and I'll be happy to do that. I took his comments as he did not want us to not allow outdoor furniture on porches and whatnot. A recliner at his particular residence also had some limitations on egress and access to the opening of to the tenant, to the dwelling. And that was the bulk of the discussion with the task force, was that a lot of the couches or appliances or mattresses that were out also blocked ingress and egress. We don't want a fireman in the middle of the night to trip, fall, or a policeman or a citizen trying to get out, to have something in their way. And that was their purpose of that code.
But it doesn't stop it if it's a screened-in area, because that would make it an enclosed area, correct? Is that
No,
correct?
screen is not enclosed.
Screen does not mean enclosed.
It'd have to be glass windows or permanent structure walls.
Okay.
But per the building code, that's my understanding. Yes,
Screen does not mean enclosed.
correct.
Okay.
Because again, elements, we don't want the couch, chairs, mattresses, book shelves, whatnot, to deteriorate, stink, cause odors, infestation, be the place for pets and critters to enjoy as being used, which has been done in the past.
Well, like I said, when Mr. Hunt first made this request of the commission, I and probably most of us took it the way Gary did, which is that he was requesting that we actually change the content of the ordinance to allow for the placement of this furniture. And while I'm sure that would be his preference, when talking to him about it later and asking him to clarify what he was asking of us, he clarified that he just found that heading to be confusing. Storage of household appliances or non-outdoor furniture. Because his position is that there's not being stored out there, it's actually being used. And so he just requested that the ordinance be a little more clear.
Like placement?
Right.
And I mean, when you get into the body of it, it says shall be placed or stored.
Sure.
But perhaps in the title, it might make it easier for citizens when they're reading through the ordinances to understand it better. I would be happy to support putting the wording storage or placement of household appliances or non-furniture, just to add clarity to it. I don't know how much more clarity it's going to add, but
And staff would be happy to prepare that for your next meeting for first reading.
That's a pretty easy.
Or even
Or
just getting
for,
rid of it.
as an
and just
add-on
saying-
to the current agenda, it won't take any time for me to prepare that.
Yeah, because this one just goes to exterior appliances and furniture.
Yeah, that's true. Katie makes a good point. We could just get rid of storage of.
And it would just go toward household appliances. I mean, 303.8 only I'm sorry, 302.8 down below just puts exterior appliances and furniture.
Okay.
Yeah. So omit storage of.
So just put like placement?
No, we'll just delete storage of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand what you're.
It just eliminates a little bit of confusion. It doesn't change the content
And then
at
you
all.
just see the topic
Yes.
itself,
Yeah.
which
You
would
have to
just
do
allow
that.
you to read on that topic, which would then clarify storage and placement or.
Be happy to do that.
Thanks, guys.
Would you like to add it to the agenda for this month?
I think it's all in due timing to do so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a,
It's really easy for
take
us
about
to do.
5 minutes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Sounds like this comment I'm about to make is probably irrelevant to what you're doing, but just for your information, the big fire we had where we lost 8 apartments on Harrisburg Lane a couple weeks ago, that was exacerbated by a sofa that was stored on a balcony. It may have not traveled so fast if it hadn't gotten into that sofa.
Okay.
thanks, Chief.
I got a few items of old business. Does anybody else have anything they want to bring up first?
I have a piece of old business.
Yep.
My piece of old business is, this will be short and quick, but I would like to request on the next work session agenda that we have a discussion topic to revisit the Human Rights Commission, which we had a joint meeting with the fiscal court on possibly adopting.
That's fine with me. I was going to bring up the subject of the Human Rights Commission and ask that either the city manager or somebody else, because they have these in flux, reach out to the fiscal court to gauge their level of interest or lack thereof, so we can know that coming to the table.
That would be nice to know too.
And also know what the previous ordinance, I guess, had said about the Human Rights Commission, because part of it, the discussion was that there was one in place, but it somehow died out. So wherever that information is, to build up from that.
There was some research done by the city clerk, and there's some evidence that one existed in the early 70s.
Probably as part of the Urban Renewal Agency, which was funded through HUD, was established here, and part of the whole urban renewal project down by the Capitol Plaza. The records of that agency was dissolved some time ago, or who knows. But they were separate, but attached to the city, but they were their own agency.
Okay.
So it wasn't, or it wasn't a city law?
It was probably a requirement of the grant, of all that federal money. And when the money went away,
So did the commission.
so did the commission. There wasn't an agency any longer to staff that and keep going. That's all I've been able to find out.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
Do we know when the next fiscal court meeting is?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Well, is that something you can attend, Fred? I'm happy. I mean, I'd be happy to go and ask and engage their interest, but it's always nice to send a.
You know, I have a medical appointment at 2 o'clock tomorrow, but I could probably work around that, but I might have to wait another 2 months to get my appointment.
Well, no, we don't want to. I mean.
Well, and it might be something where we can just touch base with the county judge and have him fill out the magistrates and see where they're at on it.
Sure.
At the
Yeah, would you mind just getting in touch with the county judge before the meeting and asking?
Sure, okay.
Asking if he would be willing to gauge their interest.
And try to get in touch with us after the meeting.
After I speak with him, I could email everyone.
That'd be great.
What I find out.
Thanks, Fred.
Thank you.
As long as we're on, I'm just going to go ahead and jump to one of these other items, as long as we're talking about the fiscal court. Have a proclamation or a formal challenge. I'd like to, I'll go ahead and read this. I don't know if this is something we need to vote on at our next meeting. But this is certainly something that we need to share with the fiscal court. Whereas the Kentucky River Paddle Fest to benefit the King Center will be held on September 8th of 2012. Therefore, the commissioners of the city of Frankfort hereby challenge the members of the Franklin County Fiscal Court to meet on the Kentucky River at Riverview Park for a canoe race on the afternoon of Saturday, September 8th at the hour of 5 p.m. The fiscal court is proud of themselves for conducting meetings more quickly than we do. We look forward to seeing whether the squires can paddle any faster than they can govern.
The challenge is issued.
The gauntlet has been thrown.
Got those drummer arms.
I'm ready. I have a question. We have to have 6 people? You said there's 3 votes of 2? Because I know 2 other people we could, if none of the other folks up here want to do it, I know a couple of ringers we can.
Ringers are allowed.
That's what I said. I know a couple of
Absolutely.
firefighter and a police officer.
Olympics is over, you
Yeah, we can ask that have a good, strong upper body strength. I'm just saying. We won't
But how's
release
their
it.
core balance? They could be as strong as they want, but if they don't have core balance, they
don't
might
want
tip the boat.
That's a good point.
That sounds great.
Just saying.
Moral business?
Yes. We had the facility walkthrough. I can't seem to recall getting any other of the facility reports except for City Hall. I know you guys said that you were going to do all the facilities with regard to inspections. And maybe I missed an email or something, but
We have done that, and I'll provide that to you
Okay.
tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One other one.
Okay.
I know in our voting meeting, the ordinance is to decrease the speed limit from 35 to 25 on most city roads, which it all makes sense. But I know there's a lot of discussion when it comes to the interstate changes, trying to increase the speed. Was the city speed limit increased within the last 10 years? From 25 to 35? Or am I recalling that wrong? With the idea that too many people were getting pulled over, people were driving faster, so they wanted to increase the speed limit.
I'm not sure. I'd have to research the original ordinance and see when that was changed. And I don't know if it's referenced in the current Code of Ordinances or not. But I don't recall past 30 years
Okay.
it had been changed.
Okay. And I guess a lot of this is mainly just for the safety. I guess that's coming up with a lot of neighborhoods. But I have some might say it was a random question, but I've had people within our city ask us this. If the speed limit gets dropped to 25 miles per hour, it might make sense sometimes to have alternative means of transportation, as long as you have road acceptable tires, which might lead to golf carts or other ATVs with road acceptance tires. I don't know if that's an ordinance that would like to look into the future. If you're dropping speed limits, people would save money on gasoline prices by having an electric vehicle.
The state statute allows cities to enact ordinances on, I think it's highways under 35 miles an hour, 35 miles an hour and under, to allow the slower type vehicles. Kind of like our gym car that we have for parking enforcement.
Right.
Of course, it's a licensed vehicle, it's a licensed roadworthy vehicle, but I think the ordinance, or the statute may apply to like the golf carts and things like that, like for private areas or whatever, but I'm assuming cities can also do that too.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Any other old business? I've got a couple of pieces.
Okay.
Well, just in regards to the Public Works request that we discussed, the funding for East Frankfort Pool. I guess first I'll just ask if you have any recommendations.
My recommendation is, I guess from the insurance standpoint, it's a liability as it is today. So for a safety standpoint, to fill it in, and if you're going to fill it in, go ahead and fill it in so that it gives you options in the future if you want to build a building or a structure there. So that would be my recommendation, is to fill it in to give, because you got parking there, you got a lot of the utilities that are already run to that location. So it's an easy reuse for the future in some other type of facility. So to fill it in to where you could build on that property would definitely be a high priority.
And I think we've established that we all agree that filling it in so that it can still serve a future purpose might cost a little more up front, but certainly saves the city a lot of time and money in the long run. Do you have any recommendations in terms of funding? And would this just require a budget amendment?
We could probably do a budget amendment. Comes to mind. Since it's not a budgeted item in our current budget, and we're just starting the year, that would be probably the only option I can think of at this point. I don't think there would be a grant or some avenue like that available.
Not that I know of, unless Rebecca knows something.
But, in terms of dollar amount, It'd be $20,000 to $30,000 would be kind of the ballpark of what it would cost. So, but then you have a site that's developable, which is very reasonable cost if you look at it from that perspective.
Okay. Well, we had, in budget discussions, we had already identified towards the end of budget discussions, and I know those were long, complicated discussions, and they required a lot of compromises, particularly in the last month. But we recognized, rather than making just last-minute changes to the budget before passing it, we agreed to go ahead and pass the budget, and then to see how the fiscal year closed out in terms of the reserve before moving on to make the amendments that we had already agreed on. And in the context of that discussion, the idea was wait to see how the fiscal year closes out, and then see if we can just make a budget amendment, or if we need to include additional cuts as well. The fiscal year closed out much better than expected, so we're up. The reserves are up to 8.9 at this point. And there was some concern that we would close out the year closer to 8. But everything, thanks to just conservative budgeting, everything went better than expected. So I think we can obviously go ahead and start discussing a budget amendment. I'm happy to include this in it. And refresh my memory, because I feel like I've asked this before, and this might have already been clarified, but the cuts to spousal insurance that were cooked into the budget and then redacted, do we still need to pass a budget amendment to cut those cuts? So to speak?
It's my understanding that we do.
Okay.
Is that right, Steve? That we...
We're going to pass a budget amendment, we should just pass one budget amendment instead of a series of them. Yeah.
Let me say one thing, just a second.
Sure.
I do have one idea that if the commission would like to entertain, if you recall in our budget discussions, you all approved $15,000 of new monies in Riverview Park to rip-wrap the boat down by the boat dock where some of the banks eroded. Maybe if we detained that for 1 year, and if you wanted to transfer that $15,000 to the swimming pool. I just had a in-depth tour with the fellow from Kentucky League of Cities for all our facilities. It went very well, but still, as again, one thing is the concern of the liability of the East Frankfort pool, which we're keeping locked and no trespassing signs on. We did very well in the inspection, but that was some new monies requested in miscellaneous in Riverview Park, which would just about cover half that cost without any problems for anybody. But we would be willing to, if you want to transfer, that $15,000 to help do the East Frankfort pool, and then we could do that the following week.
And you said in that, could you refresh our memory in terms of exactly what would be done in Riverview?
It was where the boat dock is. The bank is eroding bad, as a lot of all the Kentucky River banks are.
Sure.
And for safety, we were going to get that smoothed back out and rip-wrap it with the large rock where it would not take out chunks of bank, but I believe it would hold for another year or so. So that would, but it was $15,000 in miscellaneous, and we would be willing to shift those monies, which would cover approximately 50% of the cost without the burden on anyone. Because it is the East Frankfort pool is a very concern with Kentucky League of Cities and the liability industries. So that's one option for half of it.
I'm open to that. I should note, and I'm glad this is coming up because it's something I'm meaning to report to the commission anyway. I'm on the Riverfront Development Committee, and one of the the big goals of that committee is to get the locks open on the Kentucky River up to the Ohio, which is proceeding apace, and will hopefully be completed within, I'm guesstimating, but, well, hopefully it'll be completed within the next couple of months, which is anticipated to bring in pretty substantive river traffic into the city, which is great for us from an economic standpoint. I mean, those are essentially tourism dollars, and so that's a matter of people just coming into town, giving us their money, and leaving without requiring too much of our services, which is economically, that's about as good as it gets, and especially since we're not even talking about people coming in on roads. So along those lines, that makes the river docks all of a sudden, more important, because essentially, if we're getting more river traffic, we want people to stop in town and stop downtown and pour money into the local economy. Then the docks essentially serve as nets to catch tourists. Just to clarify, I mean, do you think that delaying this project would have any negative impact on netting tourists, so to speak?
No, I don't think so. If we delay it just a year, as long as we don't have one of the 1,000-year floods and the whole,
Sure.
But that probably wouldn't matter anyway. But that was it was more of a safety concern, for where you do have a boat dock. I mean, you can't do a whole lot about all the riverbanks or whatever, but where we had the floating dock with the mooring poles in, and just so that it didn't start to deteriorate around the concrete and stuff. But if we wanted to delay that for a year, I don't think that'd be any problem at all.
Okay.
Happy to support that idea.
That's fine with me.
I'm happy to support it. I'm also happy to go ahead and support getting community involvement, figuring out what the city, the people in our city want to do with that property. What would they like to have seen done, built there, or what they would like to see happen in the next 5 years within our Parks Department, and go ahead and start making some plans. So within the next year or two, we are dig ready, and we're ready to build, and we're ready to provide that recreational aspect to our citizens.
Maybe a good idea to have the Parks Board do an outreach program to try to solicit feedback on where do we go from here with regards to the East Frankfort pool site.
Sure, there's already been some community interest in some different things, but a good overall plan would be a good idea.
Yeah, and just seeing what to do there, and if, what people want to see grow, what to happen, and
Yeah.
just be dig ready. I mean, the infrastructure's already there at East Frankfort. There's no reason why we can't fill it in and just build a building over it and have at least a starting point.
Well, that's why, like what Jeff said, to fill it in properly, and to be ready to do that without having to go back and undo everything, whether it's a year or 10 years down the road, that would be the responsible thing to do.
Right.
Sounds good to me. This 15,000, that still puts us on the hook for 5 to 15, for an additional 5 to 15.
Right.
Is that, is there any level of discretionary spending budgeted that can handle that, or will we still need to pass an amendment for the remainder?
I think that would take a little going back to the drawing board and letting us review and see. So.
Okay.
I'd like to see if we have any available.
I'm sure Public Works could come up with.
Well, let us know, because seeing as how, I'd really prefer, if we're going to pass a budget amendment, I prefer we just
do it all.
Which gives me a question for Rebecca, actually. The grant, the budget amendment to accommodate this grant you mentioned, is there a time frame on that?
That's a question for Steve, but we do one in around November, December. It incorporates all the new grants that we've gotten since the budget.
So I think that's enough. That's plenty of time to figure this out, and we can just incorporate it all. Okay.
Thank you.
Great, there's that. Oh, another question for Jeff. We had You requested that you put together a proposal for some amendments to our sidewalk policy. Do you know when that'll be ready to discuss?
I think my proposal is to keep what we have as is, but we can change it to whatever you all want to change it to. This is what I remember we talked about last time.
We can go back to the minutes of the meeting, but my understanding was that you were going to provide us with some options in terms of how we can make it just a little easier to accommodate folks, or make it easier for folks to be proactive about requesting and getting sidewalks in their neighborhoods.
Well, one thing I talked to city manager about is during our budgeting process, earmark some of our budget towards capital projects, so that, like, if we want to consider new projects, that's generally what I consider capital projects. Sure. That if there are some projects that stand out that the city would like to fund as new projects, maybe that would be one way to address new projects through the capital, through the capital budget. Because right today we don't really have the capital budget. Maybe kind of restart that idea of earmarking a percentage of the general fund to do capital projects was one idea, and that way you don't compete against maintenance dollars and safety with what we're trying to achieve with making the sidewalks we do have that are existing safer, so that money doesn't really compete with new projects, because I know new projects are needed as well for safety. So, but that's just one thought. Maybe we could fund new projects through a capital program and get input from the community, because there's a lot of good projects out there that are worthy of pursuing, but maybe going through a more formal process, the best projects could kind of surface to the top, rather than having neighborhoods coming in one after the other, kind of stating their case of why their projects is important.
Well, right, and that was kind of the impetus for bringing this up, is so that we don't have to just sort through. We don't have to grapple with this question every time it comes up, so that we get a policy or process in place that can.
Then it kind of, and on a time frame, it kind of gives us some time frame to address this issue at one point in the year, and fund those projects accordingly, and then you have some period of time to gather projects or priorities from citizens, and then bring that back to the table and do the following year's budget.
These funds being associated with the municipal aid fund, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that adjustments to expenditures from the municipal aid fund don't need to be reflected in the budget. Is that?
That's my understanding as well. So, I mean, it could be capital projects that are out of the general fund, or capital projects out of the municipal aid fund. So you could go either funding source for the new sidewalks.
Because rather than waiting till next March or April to visit this topic, I just assume we go ahead and figure out how we can structure that. Is that something we could talk about next month?
Fine with me.
Yeah.
Now, there is a master plan through Walk Bike Frankfort,
Right.
and that might be one opportunity to bring them in for the discussion as well. And they may have some, they've got a priority that the city, a past city commission adopted their plan, so that might be a good starting point going forward of where are we in terms of, we've done several of the projects that they've identified in the past, so maybe ask them for an update of what their top 10 projects are, or what have you.
Sure.
And maybe use that as a starting point for starting a discussion on new projects.
Their input would be pretty valuable, because they had a lot to do with bringing the Shingle project to the table. Okay, great. That sounds good. We can pick this up next month then.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeff. Sorry, Jeff, one more question. This is just this isn't anything I expect you to have off the top of your head. There's been, some public debate about the the true cost of the trolley, obviously. I mean, we know that federal dollars paid for the trolley and that the operation is largely subsidized by private businesses like Buffalo Trace and Rebecca Ruth, et cetera. But would you mind, within the next month or so, giving us a
Financial report.
financial report on the trolley?
Now, and one thing to keep in mind, the fact that when we received funding for the trolley, we had to commit that we would continue to operate the trolley for a period of time.
Understood.
So
Understood.
that's also, we can report what it does cost, and but also keep in mind, we've made a commitment that we would operate it for a certain period of time as well.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the federal funding we continue to get for transportation is based in large part on the ridership numbers we post.
That's correct.
And
overall,
exactly. And so and I realize the trolley isn't always loaded during the normal workday, but it does accommodate lots of special events. And when it does that, it normally packs up. Those are numbers we report to the federal government that have a direct impact on the revenue we bring in. So I think obviously the financial analysis should include not just what the trolley costs us, but how much revenue it brings in.
Right.
It brings in for us. But there's just been so much public debate, it'd be good to get some clarification on where this trolley really stands financially.
one thing, the trolley, we have to kind of be careful of operating hours, working within our budget. We have a grant that we say we're going to operate on a certain time frame. And so when we get a lot of these requests for the trolley for special events in town, we have to get approval from the state prior to the event.
Sure.
And I guess one concern is that we use the trolley with public dollars to compete against maybe like a private service that could come in and do the same service. So we always have to get approval prior to the event, just to make sure we don't jeopardize our grant. So.
Sure. Thanks.
Okay.
Just got one more piece of old business. I'm sorry, guys. I've just been getting lots of phone calls and things. This is for parks. I know we've been having some mosquito problems in South Frankfort. That's no secret, and that's not, in lots of ways, that's not our business. I mean, folks bring all kinds of concerns to us, including mosquitoes, humidity, air travel. I mean, but some folks have expressed concerns about the mosquitoes coming out of Cove Springs. Some folks that live close to there, and they requested that we spray Cove Springs for mosquitoes. Obviously, being a nature preserve, that wouldn't be appropriate. But I wonder if you're aware, Jim, of anything we could do to mitigate mosquitoes in that area, whether or not it be bat houses or dragonfly larvae, but anything that doesn't conflict with its purpose as a nature preserve.
I've not heard that. Usually mosquitoes are where tires or gutters or that type of thing occur, not with running water, basically. But I can check into them. We can check into the Department of Agriculture and see what they recommend. We've never actually, I hate to get into spraying a lot of pesticides and a deal like that, but see what they would recommend, or if there is any alternative methods or something. But I'd be glad to check with the Ag Department. That's usually where everybody goes on that type of issue.
Sure. And I'm not even entirely certain there is a problem with Cove Springs, but somebody asked about it, and I said I'd bring it up.
My recollection, we've had some concerns, but we always look for like tires or places where water's just standing. And believe it or not, Division of Pesticides will tell you mosquitoes come out of gutters more so than creeks and rivers and stuff like that. So,
sure.
But I will check on it and let you know something.
Okay, thanks, Jim. New business. Well, Connie May was slated to give us the Financial Reports interim report. I think she did that in citizen comment. So we'll pass it on to City Employees Insurance Plan.
Well, we've got the CETA report.
Oh, gosh, I skipped way ahead. Oh, Jiminy Crickets. Hey, Kim.
Jiminy Crickets. Jiminy Crickets.
We have Kim Smith, interim director, executive director of Kentucky Capital Development Corporation.
Recently, I submitted to the city manager a copy of our semi-annual report for the first 6 months of 2012. I tried to get it in time for you all to be able to review it before tonight's meeting. That way, if you all kind of had any questions for us, you know, kind of what we're doing or anything of that nature, that I could kind of answer those questions. So, have you had time to review it at all? Have any questions for me? Or?
One question that I have is that, and I may have missed it when I was reading through here, Kim, you all are working on a project to identify available properties and post those properties on a website to where it's all in one place and a prospective business would be able to come in and say, I like that property, or I don't like that property, or whatnot. Can you give me a status update on where you are?
We have that on our website.
Is it already on there?
It is
Okay.
on our website. Yeah, we don't really have a lot of the offices, but we do have commercial and the retail and industrial properties listed there. We keep the office properties really in the in our office, so if somebody does call us, that we can give them that information, but we really don't keep the office property on the website, but the others properties are.
If I may ask, why don't we put offices on there?
It's just kind of hard to deal with that. Now, we have some of the L-bar. We do have L-bar on there, which that kind of gives them that information if they want to look at the offices. But where the offices change, one of the big things that we have is, especially if it's an office that's for rent, if some people are really excited about getting the information to you, to get it up on the site, but once they usually sell the property or lease the property, it's hard to keep them motivated and to get back to us and let us know to take that off. So sometimes that information gets dated. So
I understand that. I appreciate all your all's hard work on that.
Oh, we're staying busy. We do have the Japanese client that we talk about in the report. They have an option on the RJ Industries building out in Industrial Park Number 1. They've got a 45-day due diligence, and if things work out with that, they will close in September. So that's a good expansion for the community. We also have a client from Australia that's interested in moving to Frankfort also, so we are staying busy.
Moving forward. Thank you.
Just thank you for your commitment to the Kentucky Work Ready Community program.
Yes. It's a really good program. Yeah, we're excited about that too.
And give that a few years, that'll have quite an impact in economic development.
I really do. I think it really will.
Sowing seeds that take time, but.
Yeah, I think it really will.
Thank you for your hard work.
Yeah,
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, Kim.
I've been asked to flip the next two discussion items and to move ahead to city employees insurance plans. We have somebody from out of town to talk to us.
Thank you, Randy. Would you and Norma please come forward?
Sure. Just a little bit of background before I turn it over to Norma Bell. And you all have met Norma. She's been here before. She's with Wells Fargo Insurance Services, and the broker that helps the city with structuring the plan, monitoring our costs, and help us advise us as to what's going on out there with healthcare reform and other things that we need to make sure we comply with. So they serve a lot of different roles. Just a little bit of background. The reason why this is kind of an important item is the cost of the city's health plan is about $3.5 million a year. It's grown to where it's more than 10% of the annual budget. It had been growing historically at 8 to 12% a year for several years, so it kept, now that the city's budget is pretty flat or is not expanding, it just keeps eating up a little bit bigger piece of the pie every year. And that's one of our big challenges, is how do we manage that in such a way that it doesn't keep us from the other priorities that we have. So we've talked before, the only way that we're going to control our costs is by managing our risk, because so much of our being self-insured, the cost of our health insurance program is driven by claims. The administrative cost is really just a small fraction of the total cost of the program. But Norma she'll be providing some information about marketing our plan to other TPAs, and just to make sure that we're getting the best value that we can get, and that we're managing the program as good as it can be. You all touched earlier on something that I just had written down, the $100,000 that we reduced from the budget when we were contemplating working spouses coming off the plan. In addition to that $100,000 reduction, on August 23rd, our Wellness Committee's meeting with two vendors that they felt most comfortable from 5 that had made earlier presentations. And so we're going to try to get that committee to select a vendor so that we can get started on a wellness program. And the next step beyond selecting that vendor, besides the administrative, getting an agreement together and all that, would be surveying employees and structuring a plan to encourage the types of behaviors and the types of participation that we think will help us control costs for the long term. So there's a lot going on there. And with that, I'll just leave it to Norma to kind of give you an update. And I believe we're going to be back next month to talk about more specific recommendations. But she'll talk about what's going on right now.
Hello. I think the last time that we talked about the health insurance for the employees was we were trying to decide if we were going to make any changes to the plan. And if you remember, we continued the health insurance for an 18-month time frame for the employees. We didn't make any changes in the 18-month and got that to a January 1 cycle, so that our effective date would be January 1 instead of July. That seemed to get us on track. I think it helps a lot for the employees for keeping track of their deductible and a lot of different things. So this time, what we're trying to do is look at closer to 2014 with healthcare reform still staying in effect. There are some things that will need to be done. Currently, everything is up to date for 2012 as far as the mandates. All the mandates have been met. 2014 will be a year of, I think right now there's a lot of unknowns of what we need to do, but going forward in 2013, we do know there will be changes to the FSA, so employees will only be allowed to set aside $2,500 a year to the FSA. The other thing, the exchanges will begin next year in October. None of the regs have been written for the exchanges, and they all have not been developed yet, but by spring, everything should be up and running, and they'll know what they're going to do, and then the offers will be made in October of 2013, where employees can go on to the exchanges. The pricing and the structures and all that, we do not know right now how that is going to come down. We don't know what the participation is going to be. Some of the things, I think a lot of people thought there would be, the healthcare reform would be thrown out. The Supreme Court changed that. So we need to proceed going forward in 2014. Some of the things as if the healthcare reform is going to stay in place. And so some of the things that we need to be looking at will be your plan design. Then going forward, not in 2014, but 2018, there's going to be a penalty for companies that have, or employers that have rich benefits. At this point in time, in that the Cadillac plan, this point in time, I would say one of your plans falls into that, but we don't know the exact criteria right now. So in order to look going forward, what we're going to do is take the mandates, look at them as they go in the future, and back in September, next month, we're going to come back with our recommendations from the marketing. We're going to, as Randy said, several TPAs, all your major carriers with their TPAs, to go through and make sure that we brought the most cost-effective, the best discounts, the best plans that we can bring back to you all. We'll make a recommendation. We'll bring you probably 3 different types of plans, whether or not you want to stay what you currently have with no plan design changes, maybe a middle-of-the-road plan design, and then an aggressive plan design. One of the things going forward in 2014, the wellness piece, is something that you all have already started, as Randy said, and hopefully by the next meeting, you all will have the recommendation from the committee what they need to do. That's going to be a big part because, as Randy said, controlling your claims is the way to control your cost. And I think this is a great starting point to do that. It's a large undertaking. It's a multiple-year process. It doesn't happen overnight. So the committee is very engaged to try to figure out ways to engage employees with the city, and I think that's a good thing. And hopefully the vendor will be able to help to bring ideas to the table, very cost-effective, to help control your cost. The other thing, on your medical renewal, what we'll probably bring back are some contribution structures. I think we brought to your attention that your contribution structures are a little rich on the employee spouse, employee child, and family portion. We'll bring you some different choices on that as far as looking at to see if maybe you can tweak those a little bit. I know that you threw out the one recommendation was made earlier about the spousal. That is something that's happened in a lot of employers, and a lot of employers, the employees don't like that. So I think that there are other ways for you all to control costs besides that. The other thing that we want to take into consideration is what all the other employers are doing in this area. Some of the spouses are employed by the state. Some of the spouses are employed by the county. So we're taking into consideration, and we'll bring you a summary if we have the information for 2013 of what their cost structures are and their plan designs are. And hopefully we'll be able to do a comparison and bring back the recommendations at that point in time, and that will help you all make your decision of how you all want to proceed. Okay? Any questions? I don't want to get into too much detail. We'll have all our marketing and everything back. Like I said, we've gone to the carriers, we've gone everywhere, and we're trying to get everything structured and give you all some choices to determine what you wanted to do depending on your budget this year.
If I may add something, when my first year on the commission, our health insurance plan wasn't marketable. So the fact that we're able to now look and see what the private market has, and that they're willing to say, yeah, we'll share that risk with you, that's a major step in insurance.
We tried to market on the fully insured side last year, and no one would even touch it. Self-funded is the best way to be anyway. Claims are claims. You either pay as you go or on the back end, and so you have more control of your plan design when you're self-funded.
Well, anytime you also switch from self-insurance to full insurance,
yes,
that creates a whole lot of issues,
yes,
coverage issues there.
Yes,
so it's very difficult to do that.
It is. And we're hoping, with some of the claims exposure that you've had in the past few years, some of that risk has gone away. We're hoping there's an opportunity, a great opportunity, and we won't know that until next month when we get all the numbers back.
Excellent.
I think it also, something to look at is that, yes, some spouses may work for state government, but hold true to the fact that this is the city of Frankfort. And it's nice to get comparisons of what other companies are doing, just for knowledge and to look at. But keep in mind that this is the city of Frankfort, and the city of Frankfort has always had a standard of taking care of its employees.
Right.
So.
Well, and I think that's why we suggested the last time that any contributions, whether it seemed like it was off kilter, that is what you all have chosen to do for your employees.
Right.
And it's been expected, and it's something that over the years that you all have prided yourself in. And when we looked at that, we also brought to you all that we didn't do a lot of tweaking in the plan design because we didn't want to penalize the employees for something that had been a standard that had been set by the city. So I agree, yeah. That's why I'm going to bring you different choices, and you all can make the decision if you want to make any changes or not.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And we'll just pick this up next month.
Thank you.
Next is follow-up discussion of stormwater utility.
Mr. Scaff, you're on.
What's on this tie today?
What is that?
What's on your tie today? What is it?
Bear.
It's a bear.
I'm barely tolerable.
That's debatable.
Good evening. The reason that I guess I'm on here is you all remember, I'm sure, a month ago we had a presentation by URS at the joint city-county meeting of the results of the feasibility study. You had dropped in your mailboxes, and I will say, there's an edit going around. There's a couple pages out of order here, so you will be getting a new one of those in a couple of days. But I did want to get this to you before this meeting. But I guess my question is, what's the interest, where do we go, and how do we get there, if we go anywhere? If we don't go anywhere, then we don't have to worry about how to get there, do we?
What's your recommendation?
Well, I guess my recommendation comes straight out of about 2/3 of the way back. If you remember, there was a 2-page thing that was passed out at the meeting. It looks like this. I say it's about 2/3 of the way back. It's right after policy. And, you know, that's one of the things I wish I had caught earlier, because they have pages, but they're not numbered sequentially. But it's after policy statement 3. Basically, their recommendation, and when I say theirs, this is the recommendation that came from the URS team, which comprised obviously members of URS consulting firm, their sub-consultants, and the technical committee that represented the city in this program. But their recommendation is to proceed essentially with going forward to do essentially phase 2 of this program, which is take what they have learned and take it one step further to drill further into the feasibility and the costs and as well as the benefits of creation of a stormwater utility.
How long would you expect this phase 2 to take? I mean, this is nothing this commission is going to complete, obviously. But
Oh, heavens no.
right.
This is something that will, best case scenario, I'm going to say 16 to 18 months. Worst case scenario, 24 to 30, maybe even 36 months. It just depends on, what roadblocks we run into in the development. There are a number of things, and if you've read through the policy statements, there's some billing issues that have to be resolved. There's some inconsistency in our GIS that's got to be resolved. There's a lot of issues that have to be investigated and run through and figure out how we proceed. I'm thinking my best case of 16 to 18 probably is not going to happen. I would probably anticipate the 30 to 36 is probably not going to happen. It's probably going to be, though, an 18 to 24 month process. And that's a process to get to the point where the first bill goes out to the residents that says, this is what's there. Of course, during that entire 18-month process, there will be an educational portion of this that will be ongoing throughout to, number one, make sure that the elected officials know where it is, periodic updates, but more importantly, quite frankly, is educational information going out to the residents so that, in 24 months they get a bill that goes, you owe this much, and they're going, for what? What is this? So there is a tremendous amount of public education that's got to be factored into this.
Well, I would just like to add too, not only for the public, but for the opinion in the State Journal, that this is not, handling the stormwater is not something that this commission or the fiscal court is saying, man, we really want to create this and do this project and really go forward with it. It's something we're required to do, and we're required even to have, if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, we're even required to have a designated fund and funding source for stormwater. Is that correct?
The permit requires that you identify the funding source. It doesn't have to be a separate, it can be the general fund,
Sure.
but it has to be a designated funding source. One thing
I mean, we could just raise taxes.
Sure, but
Quite a lot.
Yeah, there's a number of ways to do that, absolutely.
But my point in bringing that up, in terms of not only an education for the voters, but so that the newspaper, especially the opinion piece, can clarify it for their readers, is that Frankfort is a unique city in that the entity that has primarily the most impervious surface is the state government. And local governments cannot tax the state government, but we can put a fee on it. This would save taxpayers dollars because that means less of your tax dollars from paying to the city are going to go to having to deal with stormwater infrastructure. And the state, who is a top contributor to our issues that we're having with stormwater, are paying their fair share. That's why the city of Frankfort, and that's why the fiscal court are looking at this. We're trying to find ways for the best value for our taxpayers, and not only the city, but countywide. And so that's why we're looking at this. That's why all the commissioners and all the court members are taking this so seriously. So I just wanted to throw that out there as a point of clarification.
And one thing I'd like to point out is, as all of you know, we being the sewer department are in the process of undertaking a project on Louisville Hill Road, which is frankly a stormwater project. We are justifying that project because that's keeping stormwater out of my combined system, which saves my ratepayers money. Obviously, those are the type projects that, quite frankly, this entity should be paying for. But, like I say, we're willing to do it because we think it's the right thing to do. Plus, in the long term, it's going to save me tremendous dollars in the cost of pumping and treating that stormwater, which now currently I do pump and treat.
That brings up another point, I think, which is that I know that your department's doing a lot of combined sewer work to deal with CSOs, or combined sewer overflows, and tearing up some streets in order to do that. Jeff raised this point at the joint meeting we held with the fiscal court. It would be a lot, rather than tear up a street now to do sewer work, then come back in a couple of years after this funding has been established and tear up the street again to do stormwater work. It's pretty inefficient and wasteful, which is why the appropriate time to do this really was a few years ago, so that we could just do all this work at once, which would save our ratepayers and our taxpayers a lot of money in the long run.
Absolutely.
It's too late to go back and
And
do this in hindsight, but we do have to do this work, and we've been advised that if we don't do the work, then not only is the city subject to fines of $35,000 a day per violation, and we've got 40-odd violations active right now, so that tallies to about $1.5 million every time it rains. The fines would be $1.5 million every time it rains. So it's a lot, as expensive as this work is, it's a lot cheaper to do it. We've also been advised that folks could go to jail if we don't do this work. We're hoping, obviously, Bill, that they're talking about you and not us.
If you don't approve the work, I'm just going to pass the buck. I'd do it, but yeah, there are consequences. There are consequences to not doing this work. And you raised a good point. We are doing a lot of inflow and infiltration reduction work, as well as other projects, that it would make sense if we had a funding source for us to go ahead and do some of these stormwater projects concurrently, because frankly, that's one of the questions that I've probably been asked a half a dozen times at our public meetings. Oh, so you're solving all of our flooding problems? And my answer is, no, not exactly. Because we're not.
Quite the opposite. That's the problem. Is that
exactly.
The work
We're doing exactly
right now
the
to comply
opposite.
with the court order is actually making a lot of the flooding problems worse, which is why it would make a lot more sense, both in the short term and the long term, to just do all of this work at once, and to address the flooding and stormwater problems along with the sewer problems. Which is, and so that's, I mean, I think obviously we need to move forward on this. I don't really see where we have any choice.
Then if there are no objections, we will go ahead and I'll contact URS unless there's a desire for us to go back out and do another solicitation, which we can do, or we can continue with URS, who's the team that's gotten us basically to this stage, and negotiate and see where we end up, and probably bring that back in September for an action item. where is that money going to come from? Because that's going to be a fairly significant endeavor. And then I guess question number 2, and I don't know if this is an issue that the short city manager is going to undertake, since he's only got a couple weeks left. But contact with fiscal court to determine if they're, going to proceed along the same lines.
Yeah.
I just have a question whenever you ever get through.
Would there be any objection, since we have a couple of questions for the fiscal court, and a challenge to issue, a gauntlet to throw? I can make it to their meeting tomorrow. Would there be any objection to me going and engaging their interest as a group at the meeting?
I have no objection to
Those things. And it would save Fred a little bit of trouble. I know he's pretty busy in his last 2 weeks, but just in the interest of efficiency, I mean, just go ask them as a group. Okay, because they have a meeting tomorrow. So,
Okay.
Although, in talking with staff at the county, I mean, my understanding is that everybody grudgingly accepts that we don't have a choice. I mean,
My understanding also, but I haven't been officially told that at this point.
I mean, there's a reason this hasn't been done yet. This hasn't been done before, which is that it's politically going to be very difficult and painful for those of us who do it. And it'd be a lot easier for us to just kick the can down the road and to let this wait a few more years. But if we do that, then it just gets more and more expensive in the long run, and our flooding problems get worse and worse in the meantime. And we get to a point then where we're pushing up against some pretty heavy deadlines, which take away a lot of our freedom, so to speak. I mean, there's a sense in which the state did us a big favor by suing us, because this is we're in violation of federal law, and the EPA has been bringing these consent judgments to towns across the country. They started on the East Coast and started suing their way across the country, and the EPA got to Lexington, sued Lexington, forced them to create a very specific type of stormwater utility. So Lexington didn't have any choice in how they set. There's umpteen different ways to do this, lots of different ways to set one up. That's why this process would take so long.
Exactly.
Because
there's a tremendous amount of background work.
Sure.
Front ground work and middle ground work that's going to have to be done.
And that work
as
needs to
part
be
of
done
this.
in order to tailor this to what's most appropriate for our community,
Correct.
for our ratepayers, for our constituents. When the feds come in and sue folks, they don't give them any leeway to tailor a plan to suit their own needs. They just come in and force you to do something much more specific. I know I'm simplifying things, but the state stepped in and sued us before the federal government could. So the state's forcing us to fix the problem. They've given us this leeway in order to fix it as nothing's painless, but as painlessly as possible. And I think we should really take advantage of that, obviously.
Is there a way that maybe you, over the next week or so, you and Steve can meet to maybe go over some possible funding mechanisms?
Well, and actually, in this report, they do discuss that, and that's in policy number 1, page 5. They go over a number of different options of how to do that. But yes, I can consolidate that into a much easier read and do that. But there are a variety of different ways that can happen.
Excellent, I'm happy to move forward.
I will.
Bill had
I
something.
had a question.
Yeah.
Just, again, I know I don't want to sound like I'm harping on the same thing, but again, anytime we can use local firms on any of this work, just want to, I think we've emphasized that before, just to want to sort of remind everybody again the importance of that.
Unfortunately, none of the local firms really have the depth of knowledge of creation of a stormwater utility. I mean, we did go out with an RFQ in the initial process. There was one local firm that did submit, and but their expertise, frankly, was more out of state URS has done much more within the state of Kentucky. And obviously, each state has their own unique issues associated with the creation of utility, which is why we chose URS, because of their breadth of knowledge in this with other utilities within the state of Kentucky.
I agree with Bill that local is very important whenever possible. But in this case, I'd say we definitely want to be dealing with folks who have done this before.
Yes.
Done this work before. Anything else before we move on to personnel? And are we, the purpose of this discussion, is it to discuss termination or appointment, or both? So we need to know that when we call for the closed session.
I would move that we go into closed session per KRS 61.810 sub 1 sub F to discuss possible appointment or termination of personnel.
Second.
Clerk, please call roll.
Commissioner Hadden?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner May?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lott?
Yes.
Donna, you made it just in time.
You have a bet or something?
She said she'll need a recess at 7.
Did you help with anything?
I'm gonna leave it all here.